Hi, and welcome to class session 10 for Ed 407507. Let's begin. In the announcement page on Blackboard, you will see an announcement about spring break and assignments. Please take a look at that. We'll be going over the written expression project. We'll look at your assignments that were due, new assignments, new topic, and the graduation project, and make sure you're working on it. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at, actually I'm going to scooch back up to the written expression project. This project is exactly the same in the structure and the bones of like the math project. It still has sections 1 through 6 that you need to make sure you complete. Um, the only difference between this obviously is that it's writing, it's not math, and the only other difference that is also on here is under section 4 in relation to plan and collaborate on instructions for your 5 different lessons. As you will see, the declarative, conceptual, problem solving, etc. type of lessons is not included in this. All that is included in this is that you must have within those 5 lessons examples of co-instruction, technology, peer-mediated instruction, teacher constructed and adapted materials. Also, you will notice on my project example, I've only listed one student. However, section 1 still requires for you to select 2 students, one with an IEP and one without, for this project. I just wanted to give you an idea of one student because writing is much more in depth. Okay, assignments that were due are the section 2 Graham and Harris reading and the quiz, and the Blackboard discussion board activity for written expression results reflection. As you know, spring break, we just had it, so there is no work assigned nor no student work given. Your new assignments for this coming Tuesday are section 3 in Graham and Harris with the quiz, samples of your student work that indicate the spelling needs and your intervention ideas, and then 2 discussion boards, learning to spell, a challenge for elementary students with learning disabilities, and the strategy application number 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at the writing process. As you know, in your syllabus, I've given you a variety of different questions that we will be discussing throughout not just this week's session, but the next few weeks' sessions on writing. And we're looking for the main areas that we can help our students so that way we can take where they're at and move them forward. Here are 7 common challenges that our students who struggle with writing have, and this isn't just our students with learning disabilities, this is most students who struggle in the area of writing. They typically have maybe 1 or 2 or all 7 of these challenges. So let's take a look at them. Poor advanced planning, generating content, persistence, revising, knowledge of writing, self-efficacy, and transcription skills. I find number 7 to be the most difficult. It's getting them to have it and say it out loud and putting it down on paper is a huge challenge as a teacher to get them to that point. How we can really identify where they might be having these challenges or these needs is looking at assessments. Assessments always can tell us where our kids are currently at, and then we can compare that to the standards to see exactly where they need to be. So there are many different standardized tests that are out there. Your goal is just to be able to identify where their current level of performance is at, what their strengths are, and what their challenges are. And then you will be diagnosing those specific needs in order to instruct. So you can do this through a variety of different ways, but you can also conduct work sample analysis, do direct observations, and interviews with the student. You can also develop a profile looking at specifics such as fluency, syntax, vocabulary, structure, and content. And also that metacognition part of it, understanding the steps in the writing process, not only for you, but for them, making sure that they understand what those steps look like so that they can tell you what they do and do not have firmly within their ability to write. Another component that I'm going to throw out, and I know I've said this before, but we do not assess and try to give them everything that they're struggling with all at once. We take it piece by piece by piece. So just like your written expression project, I don't expect you to cover everything. I just expect you to cover something and cover it well. So if the student is really dealing with fluency issues, maybe you should just target on that. If your students are really struggling with spelling, you should maybe just target on that. If your student is struggling with vocabulary, just focus on that. I'm not expecting you to cover the gamut of what all of their needs are. I'm looking for you to help them with just maybe one area in order to move on. We will be talking about handwriting and spelling later on. I just wanted to make a note of that at the bottom. So there are a variety of different standardized assessments. Once again, you're looking for the strength, the weakness, and their current level of functioning. So here are a few examples. There's the Woodcock-Johnson, the Peabody, and the Toll. So they all measure writing. You need to be very specific to use the right assessment for what you are wanting to find out from the student and to make sure it's age appropriate. You can, of course, do informal assessments where you are just taking work samples from the students and you might be able to do the type token ratio or do the index of diversification or the average sentence length or error analysis, correct word sequence, T unit length, etc. You might be able to look at all of these different ways to do an analysis of the work samples, and I just realized this is spelled wrong. Let me fix that real quick. Excuse me, sorry about that. You might want to go ahead and look over to see if any of those measures can be done within their work samples. So how might you do this? Well, assessing fluency, let's start with this one. One thing that you can do is look at the number of sentences a student came up with, just the sentences, wherever they have some type of punctuation that tells you that they're done with that sentence. You're going to take that number, total that up, then you're going to take the total number of written words. And then what you can do is you can figure out the words per sentence by dividing that number by the number of sentences that they have. You will see types of sentences used, and you can maybe comment on how many that they're using, how many sentences are fragments, how many of them are simple sentences, how many of them are compound sentences, and how many of them are complex. Of course, we don't want any sentences that are fragments, so that would be one easy way to look to see, okay, is this something that the student is struggling with? If students are making very simple sentences, we need to get them to making more compound or complex sentences. We like to see a good balance between compound and complex sentences within writing. Sentence functions, are they declarative? Are they interrogative? Are they imperative? Or are they exclamatory? What types of sentences are they commonly making? I've seen students put periods on every single sentence, even if it is asking a question, or even if it is exclaiming something. I still am seeing the same type of punctuation at the end, which is helpful to know during their fluency, how they're writing their sentences. Assessing vocabulary. This is where you could take the type to token ratio. You need a passage of at least 50 to 100 words in order to do this. You're going to take the total words and the different types of words that they come up with, and then obviously figure out the ratio. You want to look for unusual words and take an analysis number of the unusual words or words that are not basic sight words, basically, and see how many words they're using to expand their vocabulary. That's a way to assess that. There's also curriculum-based assessments. Of course, we've talked about this before, but there's Ames Web, there's Intervention Central, and there's also the Jim Wright Online. All three of those can give you different curriculum-based assessments for measuring writing fluency and just a variety of different components of students. And the great thing about any of these is that they have the progress monitoring built in. So you can take that benchmark, but you could also measure to see if the students are actually working on their specific goal that you want them to work on in order to build. And I will tell you right now, writing is one of the most daunting tasks to grade, but in the end, you're really helping those students because you're giving them the chance to look at the specifics of what they're struggling with. I want you to look at your samples that you have brought, even the one that you have for this week. You might look at your samples that you've just collected in general, but I want you to look at them and I want you to think again any thoughts based off of the information that I just shared with you, looking at strengths, maybe what their area of needs are, what assessments you might want to conduct with the student, what other assessments have you already completed and what that information gave to you, and this will really guide you with that written expression project. Okay, let's move on to general effective approach. You have to write a great deal in order to get better in the area of writing, just like you have to read a great deal to get better in the area of reading. It is just something that has to take time and practice. You have to establish a motivating and risk-free environment. So it's okay to make mistakes. The goal is that we just want you to enjoy the process of writing. Explicit instruction is huge, and once again, you will take what you've already learned even within the math. That demonstration is huge in the area of writing. That think, pair, share, thinking out loud, sharing ideas, working together is huge, and explicitly doing that whole group and small group and even possibly one-on-one is really beneficial to our students to get them to understand how good writing is structured, good writing is how it's put together and how it is done. Establish writing goals. Set goals for your students and make sure that they understand what their goal is. So if they're working on just capitalization, they are going to write, but all they're focusing on is not their spelling errors, not their punctuation, not their ideas. All they're focusing on is their capitalization. Did they put capitals where they were supposed to? That's all that your kids need to be worried about. Once they've mastered that, then you can move on to the next topic. Establish a collaborative program, making sure that your students can work together not only with each other but even with you, where they can come to you and say, okay, here's my writing piece, I need help, I need to move to the next target, or I need to move towards a new goal, etc., and have that open communication be there, because writing is very like it's like just like a dialogue. There's got to be a communication part to it. Strategy approaches work. So the strategies that I've given you within our text for Graham and Harris, they really truly work. So making sure that your students have access and are using them is going to be beneficial for everybody. One more thing that I wanted to state is that even though your student's goal might be on capitalization, for example, it doesn't mean that you can't still work on different genres. It doesn't mean that you still cannot expose them to higher level thinking ideas, such as using similes or metaphors within their writing. You certainly can, but the emphasis is going to be based upon their goals, so keep that in mind. Writing. Provide frequent opportunities and significant time for students to write. Students decide on a topic. It is communication after all. Writing as part of a more comprehensive and interesting activity with a real purpose. Make it authentic. Time for writing instruction. Exposed to a broad range of writing tasks. Integrate writing with other academic subjects. And consider previous linguistic experiences. One thing that I really want to stress about this is students who really struggle in the area of writing. It might be a general common thing. This is what I had in my past background, is that everybody wrote something different every single day. Well, instead of switching the topic every single day, my students had the same prompt for 2 days. So, and on the 5th day, they did publishing. So, whereas other students had 4 pieces to choose from for their final day to publish, my students who were really struggling had only 2 pieces that they were going to either go back and revise and publish for that 5th day. Just a word of caution with that is that you might not be able to really get them to expand very much, but you're going to get a better quality of what their writing is to look like by allowing them and giving them that time to really put into a piece of writing. Explicit instruction. You have the teach-write and the write-teach models. The teach-write are to emphasize formal grammar, instruction, structure skills, exercises, and use many worksheets. Example of non-validated practice, diagramming sentences. Non-validated for learners with disability and may damage motivation. So then you could do the write-teach, which emphasizes ideation over form, structure after ideas, process-orientated, taught in the context of actual writing opportunities, peer and teacher conferences, sharing of published work, and community of writers. May have an over-resilience on informal and incidental instruction. Learners with special needs require both a process approach and explicit instruction. Your goals are to develop goals for improvement, teach students to evaluate their own work, assist students in establishing and monitoring their own progress. Collaborative programming. Establishing a writing community. It's important that students know that they can share their writing as a whole group, with peers, or just with you. Provide that collaborative writing opportunity. Facilitate feedback from peers in the community of writers, expand on community outside the classroom. It might be helpful to go to another classroom and work together that way, or go down to different levels and have the students, older students, share with younger students. That's really great to do as well. Remember, writing is a communication link for personal expression, so sometimes we need to take our criticism out of that if they're just trying to express themselves. Okay, I am going to stop here. You need to watch the next video. Thanks.